Hello everyone. Now you are going to hear a short retelling of the movie, The Adventures of Paddington 2. An elderly couple of bears who love orange marmalade are planning a trip to London when they see a raging river carrying a cub to a waterfall. Risking their own lives, they rescue the cub. Years later, the cub they rescued ended up in London. The bear lives with the Brown family and makes friends with all the neighbors. The owner of an antique shop, Mr. Gruber, found a box of old things that belonged to a certain Madonna Kozlova, and offered Paddington to choose a gift for his aunt for her centenary. The bear cub found a fold-out album about London, which would have been the perfect gift for the bear who had always dreamed of visiting this city. But Mr. Gruber upset Paddington. This album is a great value, and it costs too much for an ordinary bear. Paddington got a job as a janitor in a hairdresser's shop, but a customer mistook him for the barber himself and asked him to give him a haircut. Grabbing the razor, Paddington immediately lost control and shaved off a strip of hair on the man's head, who was napping. After collecting the scraps, the fool tried to glue them back on with orange marmalade, but his trick was immediately exposed, and the returning barber fired the careless assistant. In the evening, the family went to the amusement park where their new neighbor was performing on stage, Phoenix Buchanan. He was once a famous actor, and today he advertises dog food. Phoenix chose Paddington to open the fair. The actor asked Bear to tell him about his dream, and he told him about Madame Kozlova's album, which he would like to give to his aunt. Phoenix was interested in the album and asked where Paddington had seen it, and he told him everything. The bear will try to earn money for the album by washing windows. From his suitcase, he took out a folding ladder and a similar bucket, but it was too heavy when filled with water. Paddington lifted the bucket up, but nothing good came of this idea. With some difficulties and a non-standard approach to work, the bear managed to cope with the task and wash all the windows on the street. Only the harmful Mr. Curry does not like this activity of the bear. Paddington works hard every day, washing every window in the city with his hand and brush. The coin bottle is gradually filling up. One more day of work and Paddington will be able to buy a present for his aunt. Suddenly, he sees a thief breaking into Mr. Gruber's shop. Paddington follows him, but when the alarm goes off, the thief grabs the album and runs away. A policeman catches a bear in the act. Paddington is chasing the thief on his familiar mongrel, Wolfie. He accidentally sat on Swan when he rode into the bushes, and with his prank managed to shock the man, and he fell off the bike. The Swan also threw off its rider, but Wolfie picked it up again. The thief pretended to surrender, but suddenly threw a bomb at his feet and disappeared in the smoke. Only one bear was left standing in the middle of the street, and he was immediately arrested. All the neighbors learned about the crime. The bear cub was thrown into a car and taken to the police station. Phoenix Buchanan turned out to be the thief, and he was glad that the police accused someone else of the crime. The actor talks to the mannequins and dreams of returning to the big stage to perform a one-man show. The album will help him raise the money he needs to do so. On each spread, a little lady gives him clues that will lead him to the treasure, so he finally stops eating dog food on camera. Paddington's trial began, and it turned out that the judge was the same man who gave the bear a fashionable haircut. Mr. Gruber does not believe that his friend could have robbed the store, but paw prints were found all over the building as well as orange marmalade. The scoundrel Buchanan also testified he allegedly saw the bear that night, and it was not really chasing anyone. So Paddington was sentenced to 10 years in prison for theft of property and severe hair damage. Once in the cell, the bear asked the guard to read him a bedtime story, but for some reason he refused. Meanwhile, the brownies were busy searching for the real thief, and Phoenix went to the historical museum and found the first clue. The letter D. Paddington was sent to work in the laundry. He threw a striped uniform into the washing machine and accidentally threw a red sock in, which made the gray uniform turn pink, and no one liked it. Paddington was told to shut up and eat, as if it were the last time. However, the food turned out to be absolutely disgusting, but no one dared to point this out to the cook, nicknamed Knuckles. The gangster sent a bear cub to deal with it so that it could atone for its puncture with a uniform. The cub complained about the lumpy porridge, hit Knuckles on the head with a baguette, and smeared ketchup and mustard on him. Knuckles was going to make a bear pie out of the naughty boy, but then a sandwich with divine marmalade fell into his mouth. When he learned that Paddington could also make it, the authority figure announced that from now on, the bear was under his protection. Mr. Gruber is surprised that the thief stole the album because there were much more valuable things around him. The Browns visited Mrs. Kozlova's great-granddaughter and asked her to tell them about her relative. She was the greatest circus performer of her time, especially famous for her aerial acrobatics, and she became rich because of it. A magician wanted to take away her wealth and cut the rope, and the circus performer fell to her death. However, when he opened the safe, the villain found no treasure, only a folding album. To avoid being caught, the magician disappeared with the album and was never seen again. Mrs. Brown guessed that the album contained clues leading to the treasure. To get to St. Paul's Cathedral, Phoenix disguised himself as a nun. Knuckles woke Paddington up in the middle of the night and sent him to the kitchen to make marmalade. The cook wasn't going to help Bear, so he had to handle the 1,000 oranges alone. Paddington keeps mentioning his Aunt Lucy, which makes Knuckles very angry, and he calls the bear an old lady. Then Paddington turned on his famous stern look, which made the authority figure tense up, and he uses it often himself. Praising the prisoner's hands, the bear cub suggested that they would make good juicers, and he engaged the idiot in making marmalade. At night, there was an incident in the cathedral. A nun got angry and broke a statue. Phoenix found the letter C on it and smashed the statue to distract the guard. When reinforcements arrived, a bishop came out of the cathedral instead of the nun. For breakfast, Paddington served the chef's specialty, marmalade, between 2 slices of crustless bread. All the prisoners were completely delighted and greeted Castet with applause. The bear invited others to participate if they knew how to cook. It turned out that the prisoners knew a lot of recipes. Soon the kitchen was filled with culinary delights, and the dining room was named Aunt Lucy's Tea Club. The prison prospered, and the guard began reading fairy tales to the prisoners. The Browns came to Paddington and told him about their investigation. Bear introduced his family to his new friends, and Mr. Brown did not like them at all. They would like to help in the investigation, but the portraits of the suspects are very strange, like at a masquerade. Mr. Curry hinders the search by calling Paddington a thief. He is the only one who is happy that the bear is in jail. Mrs. Brown jokingly asked the parrot where the thief was, and the bird replied, "He's right behind you." Phoenix followed her out onto the balcony, and the actor boasted to his neighbor that he had probably found the money to finance his one-man show, and for some reason called the thief a blue-eyed beauty, even though all the drawings were in black and white. Mrs. Brown suggested that Phoenix was exactly who they needed, but now they had to figure out how to expose him. The prisoners communicate at night through the pipes, and Knuckles promises to help Paddington find the real thief, but they will need to break out of prison. The cub refused, and the convicts convinced him that the Browns would soon forget about him, but they did their best to help him. Mrs. Brown hid in a huge basket that was to be delivered to the Phoenix, and the children went to his agent and recorded the conversation. They used the recording of a woman's voice to lure Felix out of the house, and he ran away to meet them at a restaurant. Mrs. Brown climbed out of the basket, her husband saw her from the window, and also entered the stranger's house. The couple found out that the actor had a lot of debts. He was bankrupt. Then they found a secret entrance to the attic, and in the attic they found the costumes of a thief and a nun, which means that it was Phoenix after all. The actor himself went back to get his scarf and found his neighbor hiding behind the sofa. He found Phoenix and Mrs. Brown, who were lying about inspecting the neighbor's house because Mr. Brown was an insurance agent. Phoenix pretended to believe them and immediately checked to see if the album was still there. The actor has already collected all the sheets, or rather the notes, and now they need to be played in a certain place. The Browns came to the police with all the evidence, but without proof, the officer was not going to listen to them. For the first time ever, the family was late and didn't show up for Paddington's appointment, and the bear thought they had already started to forget about him. At night he dreamed that he was back in the jungle of Peru and met his Aunt Lucy. Paddington agreed to take part in the escape. First they made their way to the laundry room, then the bear cub got to the clock tower, where the head of the guard's office with all the keys was located. The prisoners climbed to the roof, made a balloon and a large basket out of a sheet to leave the prison. The criminals changed into ordinary clothes and landed near the airfield. It turned out that the fugitives were not going to help the bear cub, but were simply leaving the country. Castet had to lie, otherwise Paddington would not have agreed to help them. The bear was upset and ran away, leaving the Browns a message that he had escaped from prison and said goodbye to them. Mrs. Brown immediately called back, and Bear found out that no one had forgotten about him, and moreover they had found out who the real thief was. They agreed to meet at the train station where the carnival train was leaving today, and the last clue led to him. The bear was helped by the garbage man from his street, and the Browns were helped by all their neighbors who pushed the stuck car. They all want Paddington to get home. The bear ran through the station pretending to be an urn. Paddington recognized the actor and jumped on the train after him, but the Browns were late but did not give up. Jonathan is well versed in steam locomotives and hijacked one of them. Meanwhile, the fugitives heard on the radio that their furry friend had been seen at the station and that the police would soon capture him, and that he might be right below them. It turned out that the murderous magician was Phoenix's grandfather, and the actor found a carnival organ and began to press the right keys. Paddington uses caramel apples to move across the roofs of the cars. The family jumps from train to train, and Mr. Brown has to remember what he learned in yoga classes. The Phoenix dialed the right combination, and a treasure box opened in front of him. However, the bear cub took the album and scared the thief. The organ closed again, and Phoenix did not remember the combination. He chased the Paddington until it fell down. The Browns were going to capture him, but Phoenix wielded a sword and shackled the whole family. However, Mrs. Burr also knows a few tricks. The bear tries to get to the locomotive with a folding ladder, but the actor pulls him back, takes the album and unhooks the bear carriage, but gets hit in the forehead by Mr. Brown. The bear rolled down the slope and fell into the water. Mrs. Brown jumped from the bridge into the water and almost saved the Paddington, but the door was chained. It seemed that there was no way out of this situation, but the bear's prison friends swam to the car and broke the chain. Paddington was saved, but he fell ill and regained consciousness at home 3 days later. The Browns told him that he was acquitted, and Phoenix was imprisoned. It was Aunt Lucy's birthday, and Paddington didn't bring her a present, but that was okay. All of his neighbors came to visit him and said that they had all chipped in for a gift, and they brought Aunt Lucy here so that she could finally see London with her own eyes. This is where the movie ends. That's all for today. Subscribe and like if you want more videos like this.